Hey guys, tonight, let us drift back to a time when college meant something entirely different than it does now. Picture cracked sidewalks leading to ivy-covered buildings, the smell of mimeograph ink fresh on test papers, and dorm rooms where typewriters clattered late into the night. We're talking about the 1960s, when college life was equal parts intellectual awakening, social revolution, and navigating rules that would make your head spin today. Before we settle in, I want to thank the person who suggested this topic. Your idea sparked something special, and honestly, your suggestions are what keep this channel growing. So take a second, if you feel like it, to hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these trips through time. And hey, speaking of trips, the channel is now live on Spotify. There is a link in the description if you want to take these stories with you wherever you go. No pressure, just an option if it suits you. Now get yourself comfortable. Dim those lights, turn on a fan if you have one, settle into your favourite spot and let the day fall away. Really settle in, like you are claiming this moment just for yourself, because tonight we are stepping into a world where college was not just about career preparation. It was about transformation. It was about sitting in lecture halls where professors smoked pipes during class. It was about curfews that locked women into dorms at 10 p.m. sharp. It was about protest marches that changed history, late-night conversations about civil rights and Vietnam, and navigating a social landscape where the rules were being rewritten in real time. Have you ever wondered what a Tuesday morning felt like on a 1960s college campus? What did the student union smell like? All cigarette smoke and burnt coffee and mimeographed flyers. What did students actually talk about between classes? How did it feel to study in a library where silence was enforced by librarians who could freeze you with a single glance? What was it like to register for classes by standing in line for hours with paper punch cards? Did students really debate philosophy until 3 a.m, or is that just nostalgia talking? And could you survive a semester under those dress codes, those rules, those expectations that seem designed to test your patience as much as your intellect? Well, congratulations. It is September 1963. The leaves are just beginning to turn. Your parents have dropped you off at the campus gates with a trunk full of everything you own. A typewriter sits on your desk, waiting. The rules are printed in a handbook thicker than your chemistry textbook, and your college life is about to begin. Let us start with the moment you arrive. Trunk in hand, standing at the edge of campus on a crisp September morning. The air smells like fresh-cut grass and possibility. Your parents help you carry your belongings up narrow stairwells to a dorm room barely large enough to turn around in. The trunk is heavy, packed with everything the college sent on its recommended list. Bedding, towels, a desk lamp, notebooks, pens, and a dictionary so thick it could double as a doorstop. Your mother folded every shirt with care. Your father secured the latches twice, as if the trunk might burst open from the weight of expectation alone. Now, the three of you climb stairs that creak under the combined load of the trunk, and the unspoken emotions no one knows quite how to name. Other families pass you on the stairwell, all carrying similar burdens. Everyone nods politely, sizing each other up in the way people do when they are all navigating the same unfamiliar territory. A father in a fedora and suit offers to help with your trunk. Your father declines, politely, because accepting help feels like admitting something he is not ready to admit yet. The hallway smells like floor wax and anticipation. Doors stand open, revealing rooms in various states of unpacking. You hear laughter from one room, crying from another, and the distant sound of a radio playing something jazzy and optimistic. Your room is halfway down the hall, third door on the left, and when you step inside it feels impossibly small and enormously significant at the same time. 2 beds, 2 desks, 1 window. The walls are bare except for a bulletin board someone mounted years ago, riddled with pinholes from previous occupants. The floor is linoleum, scuffed in patterns that tell stories you will never know. Your roommate has not arrived yet, so you get first choice of sides, and you take the bed by the window because natural light feels like a small luxury worth claiming. Your mother begins unpacking immediately, smoothing sheets with the same care she used at home, arranging your towels on the shelf as if their placement might determine your success. Your father inspects the window latch, tests the desk chair, checks the radiator. He's looking for problems to solve because solving problems is easier than saying goodbye. You stand in the centre of the room, watching them, feeling the weight of transition settle over all three of you like a heavy quilt. This is the moment everything changes. Childhood does not end dramatically. It ends in a dorm room that smells like industrial cleaner, with your mother folding your socks and your father pretending the window latch needs adjusting. Eventually the trunk is empty. The bed is made. Your textbooks are stacked on the desk in alphabetical order by subject, because your mother believes order creates success. There is nothing left to unpack, nothing left to arrange, and the silence stretches long enough that someone has to break it. Your father shakes your hand. It is formal, oddly so, but his grip is firm and his eyes are damp, and he does not trust his voice to say much beyond, "Work hard. Make us proud." Your mother hugs you longer than usual, smoothing your hair one last time, whispering advice about eating vegetables and writing home and not staying up too late. Then they are gone, footsteps fading down the hallway, and you are alone in a room that is yours but does not feel like yours yet, on a campus full of strangers, at the very beginning of everything. Your room is small, sparse, and yours. 2 beds, 2 desks, 1 window that overlooks the quad. The walls are cinder block painted institutional beige, and the radiator clanks to life at odd hours like a mechanical ghost. The dimensions are almost comically compact. If both you and your roommate stand up at the same time, one of you has to wait while the other moves. The closet is barely deep enough to hang a coat without the door hitting the hanger. The desks are built into the wall, sturdy but immovable, positioned so that when you sit you face cinder block from approximately 18 inches away. But despite its size, this room is yours in a way nothing has ever been yours before. No parents down the hall, no younger siblings barging in, no family routines dictating when lights go out or music gets turned down. The freedom is intoxicating and slightly terrifying, like being handed keys to something you're not entirely sure you know how to drive. Your roommate arrives an hour after your parents leave. His name is Michael, though he insists everyone calls him Mike, and he is from a town 3 states over that you have never heard of. He is tall, freckled, nervous, and he shakes your hand with the formality of someone who has practiced this moment. His parents unpack with the same ritualistic care yours did, and you excuse yourself to give them space, wandering the hallway and introducing yourself to neighbours whose names you will forget and relearn a dozen times before they stick. By evening, the room begins to take shape. Your side is orderly, books arranged by subject, clothes folded in drawers. Mike's side is organised chaos, textbooks stacked in precarious towers, a poster of a jazz musician you do not recognise taped crookedly above his bed. The contrast feels appropriate somehow, like the room itself is learning to hold 2 different people at once. The radiator becomes the room's dominant personality. It clanks on at random hours, hissing and groaning like it is auditioning for a horror film. Some nights it turns the room into a sauna. Other nights it refuses to work at all, leaving both of you shivering under every blanket you own. You learn to sleep through the noise, the same way you learn to sleep through Mike's snoring, the footsteps in the hallway, the doors slamming at 2 a.m. when someone stumbles back from studying or socialising or whatever it is people do that late. The window overlooks the quad, a patch of green framed by brick buildings and sidewalks that crisscross like veins. During the day, you watch students hurry between classes. At night, the street lamps cast pools of amber light, and occasionally you see couples walking slowly, heads bent close, together savouring the last minutes before curfew sends them to separate buildings. You and Mike establish routines quickly, the way strangers forced into close quarters always do. He studies late, hunched over his desk with the lamp casting shadows across his notes. You study earlier, preferring to finish before the Radiator's evening performance. He likes the window cracked even in winter. You prefer it sealed tight. Neither of you mentions these preferences. You simply adjust, compromise, coexist. The room accumulates small details that make it feel lived in. A coffee mug on the windowsill, a jacket slung over a chair, notes tacked to the bulletin board reminding you both of exams, meetings, things you swore you would remember but know you will not. The desk lamp flickers sometimes, and you keep meaning to replace the bulb but you never do, and eventually the flicker becomes part of the room's character. On Friday nights, when the dorm empties out for parties and football games and social events you're still learning to navigate, the room feels different, quieter, almost lonely. You sit at your desk, pretending to read, listening to the muffled sounds of life happening elsewhere, wondering if college is supposed to feel this strange, this isolating, this full of possibility and homesickness, all at once. But then Mike returns, or you both end up back in the room at the same time, and the space shrinks back to its small, cluttered, comfortable self. You talk about classes, complain about professors, debate the merits of the cafeteria's meatloaf, and slowly, without realizing it, this tiny cinder block box becomes the place you think of when someone says home. Orientation begins with a mandatory assembly in an auditorium that smells like old wood and nervous energy. The dean stands at a podium, reading rules from a leather-bound book with the solemnity of someone delivering commandments. The auditorium seats 800, and every seat is filled. Freshmen packed shoulder to shoulder, fidgeting in clothing their parents insisted was appropriate for the occasion. Young men in pressed slacks and collared shirts, young women in skirts and blouses, hair carefully styled, hands folded in laps. Everyone looks simultaneously eager and terrified, like passengers waiting for a train. They're not entirely sure they want to board. The air is thick and warm, trapped beneath high ceilings and stained glass windows that cast coloured light across rows of wooden seats worn smooth by generations of students. You can smell floor polish, old hymnals from when this building served as a chapel, and the faint collective scent of several hundred people trying not to sweat through their good clothes. The dean is older, silver-haired, wearing academic regalia that makes him look like a character from a novel about British boarding schools. He grips the podium with both hands and speaks in a voice that carries authority the way some people carry briefcases naturally and without effort. He does not need a microphone. Projection is simply expected. He begins by welcoming you to the institution, though his tone suggests welcome is too casual a word for what is happening. You are being inducted, initiated, absorbed into something larger than yourselves. He speaks about tradition, legacy, the weight of those who came before you, and the responsibility you now carry to honour their sacrifice. It feels grand and slightly overwhelming, like being told you are part of history before you have done anything historically significant. Then come the rules. So many rules. Read from the leather-bound book with the precision of legal text. Curfews, dress codes, academic expectations, conduct policies, grounds for suspension, grounds for expulsion. The list stretches on, each rule delivered with the same firm gravity, until you begin to wonder if there is anything you're actually allowed to do beyond breathe and attend classes. Women must sign out when leaving campus. Men must maintain a C average to avoid academic probation. Alcohol is forbidden on campus and in town. Visiting hours between dormitories are restricted and supervised. Attendance at chapel services is mandatory for first-year students. Smoking is permitted only in designated areas. Cars are forbidden for freshmen. Gambling in any form will result in immediate disciplinary action. You glance around the auditorium. Some students take notes frantically, trying to capture every detail. Others sit frozen, expressions hovering somewhere between shock and resignation. A young woman 2 rows ahead dabs at her eyes with a handkerchief. A young man near the aisle stares at the ceiling as if searching for an escape route that does not exist. The dean continues. He speaks about character, integrity, the kind of citizen this institution aims to produce. College is not merely about acquiring knowledge, he says. It is about transformation. You will leave here different than you arrived. Better, more disciplined. Prepared for the responsibilities of adulthood. His words are intended to inspire, but they land with the weight of obligation. After the dean finishes, a parade of administrators takes the stage. The registrar explains course enrollment. The housing director reviews dormitory policies. The student conduct officer reminds you that ignorance of the rules is not a defence. Each one speaks with the same formal cadence, as if reading from scripts perfected over decades. By the time the assembly ends, you've been sitting for nearly 3 hours. Your back aches. Your mind swims with regulations you're already forgetting. You file out of the auditorium with hundreds of other freshmen blinking in the afternoon sunlight, wondering what exactly you just signed up for. Outside, upperclassmen loiter near the doors, grinning with the smug knowledge of survivors. They whisper encouragement, warnings, inside jokes you do not yet understand. Someone hands you a mimeographed schedule of orientation events, campus tours, placement exams, a mixer in the student union. Your college career has officially begun, and already it feels like navigating a foreign country where everyone speaks the language except you. The dress code is not a suggestion, it is law. Women cannot wear pants to class. Men cannot enter the dining hall without a collared shirt. Your appearance is considered a reflection of the institution, and the institution does not tolerate wrinkled khakis. The rulebook devotes 3 full pages to acceptable attire, broken down by gender, location, and time of day. You read it the first night, sitting on your dorm bed, trying to reconcile these expectations with the wardrobe you brought from home. Your mother assured you that you packed appropriately, but now, reading the fine print, you wonder if anyone can truly be prepared for this level of sartorial scrutiny. For women, the rules are exhaustive and specific. Skirts and dresses only. Hemlines no more than 2 inches above the knee, measured while kneeling. Blouses must have sleeves. Stockings or socks are mandatory, even in warm weather. Slacks are permitted only for outdoor recreation, and only in designated areas, never in academic buildings, never in the dining hall, never anywhere an administrator might see and disapprove. Hair must be neat, styled, controlled. Excessive makeup is discouraged. Jewellery should be modest. Bare shoulders are grounds for being sent back to your dormitory to change. The enforcement is relentless. Dorm mothers inspect outfits before women leave for breakfast. Professors turn students away at classroom doors if their appearance does not meet standards. Dining hall attendants refuse entry to anyone dressed inappropriately, which means missing meals if you miscalculated your wardrobe that morning. For men, the expectations are slightly less elaborate but no less rigid. Collared shirts at all times in academic buildings and dining facilities. Slacks, never jeans, except during designated recreational hours. Shoes, not sneakers, unless participating in athletics. Ties are required for Sunday chapel services and formal dinners. Hair must be trimmed short, off the collar, neatly combed. Facial hair is discouraged, and in some cases outright forbidden. Appearances must project seriousness, maturity, respect for the institution. The reasoning, according to the dean's opening remarks, is that personal presentation reflects character. Slovenly dress indicates slovenly thinking. If you cannot discipline yourself to dress appropriately, how can you be trusted to discipline yourself academically? The logic is presented as self-evident, beyond debate, a truth as fundamental as mathematics. You learn quickly that the dress code extends beyond clothing into broader expectations of comportment. Posture matters. Grooming matters. The way you carry yourself across campus is observed and occasionally corrected. An administrator once stopped a male student for walking with his hands in his pockets, informing him that such casual posture was unbecoming of a college man. The student apologized and adjusted. There was no argument. Arguments do not exist in a system this entrenched. Laundry becomes a strategic operation. You calculate which outfits meet requirements, which can be rotated, which need washing most urgently. Women iron blouses on Sunday evenings, preparing for the week ahead. Men shine shoes, check collars for fraying, ensure every shirt is tucked and every belt is fastened. The labour is constant, invisible to outsiders, but essential to survival. Some students rebel in small ways. A young woman rolls her skirt waistband to raise the hem an inch, gambling that no one will measure. A young man wears his collar slightly loosened, a tiny act of defiance that feels enormous. These gestures are minor, barely noticeable, but they matter because they represent the only autonomy left in a system designed to regulate nearly everything. Others embrace the dress code, finding comfort in its clarity. At least you know the expectations. At least the rules are written down. Some students even take pride in their appearance, viewing the dress code as preparation for professional life, where similar standards will apply. Better to learn now, they say, than struggle later. But most students simply comply, wearily, pragmatically, because fighting the dress code feels like fighting gravity. You adjust your tie, you smooth your skirt, you check your reflection before leaving your room, mentally running through the checklist of regulations, hoping you remembered everything, and then you step into the hallway, properly dressed, appropriately groomed, ready to meet the institution's expectations for one more day. Registration is a multi-hour odyssey, involving punch cards, long lines, and the sinking realization that the class you need only has 3 open spots left, and 47 people ahead of you in line. You arrive at the gymnasium at 7 a.m, because the rumours circulating through the dormitory suggested that early arrival is the only strategy that works. The gymnasium has been transformed into a bureaucratic maze. Tables arranged in rows, each representing a department, each staffed by exhausted-looking faculty members and upper-level students tasked with managing the chaos. The air smells like floor wax, mimeograph, ink and desperation. Hundreds of students mill around, clutching course catalogues and handwritten schedules, trying to decode a system that seems intentionally designed to confuse. Upperclassmen navigate with practiced efficiency, weaving between tables, collecting signatures, moving on. Freshmen wander like lost tourists, squinting at department signs, whispering questions to anyone who looks remotely knowledgeable. You join a line. Then you realize it is the wrong line. You join another. This one inches forward at a pace that suggests geological timescales. The person ahead of you is arguing with a professor about prerequisites, insisting they took an equivalent course in high school. The professor is unmoved. The argument continues. The line does not move. Registration operates on a punch card system. Each course has a limited number of slots. represented by physical cards kept in boxes at each department table. When a slot is claimed, a card is pulled and hole-punched with your student identification number. When the box is empty, the course is full. No exceptions, no overrides. Simple, brutal, final. The problem is that everyone needs the same courses: English composition, introductory mathematics, foreign language requirements, survey courses that fulfill general education mandates. The demand far exceeds the supply, which means registration becomes a race where speed matters more than need. You finally reach the front of the English department line. The professor, wearing a cardigan that has seen better decades, looks at you with the weary expression of someone who's already said no 100 times today. "What section do you want?" he asks. You name your preferred time slot. He shakes his head. "Full. You ask about the afternoon section. Also full. You ask about any section." He sighs, rummages through the box and produces a single punch card. 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You take it, grateful, even though 8 a.m. sounds like punishment. The process repeats at every table. History, full except for the 7 a.m. section, taught by a professor rumoured to fail half his students. Biology, full everywhere, but you can join a waiting list that may or may not result in enrolment. Mathematics, 3 sections available, all at times that conflict with the English class you just registered for, which means starting over or accepting a schedule that makes no sense. You watch students around you negotiate, plead, occasionally tear up. A young woman near the language department table is explaining that she needs French to fulfill her major requirement, but every section is full, and without it she cannot graduate on time. The professor nods sympathetically but offers no solution. Rules are rules. Capacity is capacity. Physics. By noon, your hand cramps from filling out forms. Your schedule is a chaotic patchwork of morning classes, awkward gaps, and one evening lab section that will devour your Wednesday nights for the entire semester. It is not what you wanted. It is not even close, but it is what you got, and you're too exhausted to fight anymore. Some students give up entirely. You see them leaving the gymnasium empty-handed, muttering about trying again next semester, about switching majors, about whether college is even worth this level of bureaucratic torture. Others, more determined or desperate, camp out at tables, waiting for someone to drop a class, ready to pounce on any newly available slot. The worst part is knowing this will happen again next semester, and the semester after that. 4 years of registration days stretching ahead like a recurring nightmare. You fold your punch cards carefully, tuck them into your catalogue, and head back to your dormitory, schedule in hand, wondering if anyone actually enjoys this process or if collective suffering is simply part of the college experience. Every morning you walk across campus to your first lecture. The paths are lined with oak trees older than anyone you know. The air is cold enough to see your breath, and your shoes click softly against cobblestones, worn smooth by decades of students before you. The alarm clock shatters the pre-dawn quiet at 6:30. You roll out of bed while your roommate groans and buries his face in his pillow. The room is dark except for the pale glow of the street lamp outside your window. You dress quickly, quietly, pulling on layers because October mornings are unforgiving and the walk across campus offers no shelter from the cold. By 7:15, you're outside, joining the stream of students heading toward academic buildings. The campus is beautiful at this hour, almost painfully so. Mist clings to the quad, the sky shifting from deep blue to pale grey. Lights glow in windows across the dormitories, small beacons of wakefulness in a world still half asleep. The paths you walk are older than your grandparents. Cobblestones laid generations ago, uneven and weathered, forming routes that connect every corner of campus in a web of tradition and routine. Your shoes make a soft, rhythmic sound as you walk, click, click, click. Around you, dozens of other shoes create the same percussion, a quiet morning symphony of students moving toward the same destination. The trees are magnificent. Oaks mostly, with trunks so thick 3 people holding hands could not encircle them. Their branches arch overhead, forming tunnels of gold and red and orange leaves. In September, the canopy is still green. By October, it transforms into fire. By November, the branches are bare, skeletal, beautiful in their starkness. You will walk this path every morning for 4 years, and the trees will mark time more reliably than any calendar. The air is sharp and clean, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and damp earth. Your breath comes out in small clouds that dissolve almost immediately. You pull your coat tighter, wishing you had worn gloves, making a mental note to dig them out of your trunk tonight. Other students walk beside you, some alone, some in clusters. Everyone moves with purpose, heads down against the cold, books tucked under arms. Occasionally someone greets you. Good morning. Cold one today. Nice weather for ducks. Brief exchanges that acknowledge shared experience without demanding conversation. You appreciate the balance. Too much silence feels lonely. Too much chatter feels exhausting. This is just right. You pass the library, its stone facade glowing faintly in the early light. The statue of the university founder stands in the centre of the quad, bronze and solemn, gazing toward buildings that did not exist when he walked here. Students have rubbed his shoe for luck so many times that the bronze has worn smooth, gleaming even in dim light. The chapel bell tower chimes 7:30. The sound carries across campus, rich and resonant, marking time the way it has marked time for over a century. You quicken your pace slightly. Class starts at 8, and professors do not tolerate lateness. As you approach your building, the crowd thickens. Students funnel through the main doors, shaking off the cold, stomping their feet on the mat. Inside, the hallway smells like floor wax and chalk dust and old radiators struggling to warm rooms designed in an era when heating was an afterthought. You climb stairs to the second floor, joining the flow of students moving toward lecture halls and seminar rooms. You pause at the door of your classroom, glancing back down the hallway. Through the window at the far end, you can see the path you just walked, already filling with the next wave of students. The trees stand watch, patient and timeless. The cobblestones gleam faintly in the growing light. It is a view you will carry with you long after you leave this place. Then you turn and step into the classroom, finding your seat, pulling out your notebook, preparing for another morning of learning. But for a moment, just a moment, you let yourself appreciate the quiet beauty of the walk that brought you here. The lecture hall seats 200 students, tiered rows that climb toward the back like an amphitheatre. The professor stands at the front, pipe in hand, speaking without a microphone because projection is simply expected. You arrive 5 minutes early and claim a seat in the middle section, not too close to suggest over-eagerness, not too far back to signal disengagement. The wooden seat creaks as you settle in, folding down the small attached desk that will hold your notebook for the next 50 minutes. Around you, students shuffle into place, opening textbooks, uncapping pens, preparing for the performance about to begin. The hall is old, built in an era when education meant lecture, and lecture meant one voice filling a cavernous space with knowledge. The ceiling arches high overhead, adorned with plaster moulding that someone once cared about but no one notices anymore. Tall windows line one wall, letting in pale morning light that does little to warm the room. The radiators hiss and clank, offering the illusion of heat without meaningful follow-through. At precisely 8 o'clock the professor enters. He's perhaps 60, wearing a tweed jacket with leather elbow patches and carrying a leather satchel that looks older than most of the students in the room. His pipe is already lit, trailing a thin ribbon of sweet-smelling smoke. He sets his satchel on the desk at the front, removes a sheaf of notes, and begins speaking without preamble, without introduction, as if the lecture is simply a continuation of a conversation that started long before any of you arrived. His voice carries effortlessly to the back row. There is no microphone, no amplification, just the practiced projection of someone who learned to teach in an era when commanding a room was a fundamental skill. He speaks in complete sentences, paragraphs even, his thoughts organised with the precision of someone who has delivered this lecture dozens of times but still finds it engaging. The pipe is a constant companion. He gestures with it for emphasis, uses it to punctuate important points, occasionally pauses mid-sentence to relight it, with a match struck against the side of the matchbox. The ritual is so practiced it never interrupts the flow of his speech. Smoke drifts toward the ceiling in lazy spirals, mingling with the chalk dust that hangs in the air like fog. He writes on the blackboard occasionally, his handwriting surprisingly elegant, each letter formed with care. The chalk squeaks. He ignores it. You take notes frantically, trying to capture the ideas spilling from him faster than your hand can write. Around you, 200 pens scratch against paper in collective concentration. The lecture is not a dialogue. Questions are not invited. Interaction is not expected. This is transmission, pure and simple. Knowledge flowing from his mind to yours through the medium of spoken word and blackboard diagrams. If you're confused, you figure it out later. If you're lost, you catch up on your own. The lecture proceeds at its own pace, indifferent to individual comprehension. But despite the formality, there is something mesmerizing about it. The professor's passion is evident, even through the formal delivery. He pauses occasionally to share an aside, a story from his own research, a moment of connection to the material that reminds you these ideas matter to him beyond the mechanics of teaching. His eyes light up when he reaches a particularly elegant proof or a beautifully constructed argument. You realize you're watching someone in love with his subject and that love is contagious. The other students are equally absorbed. The young woman to your left fills 3 pages of notes with tiny, precise handwriting. The young man behind you underlines key phrases with aggressive strokes. No one talks, no one fidgets. Attention is absolute, enforced by social expectation as much as by genuine interest. Near the back, one student has fallen asleep, head resting on folded arms. The professor glances up, notices, and continues without comment. Either he does not care or he has seen it so many times that remarking on it would waste energy better spent on students still conscious. At 8:50, the professor concludes precisely on time. He gathers his notes, tamps out his pipe, and exits the hall without ceremony. The spell breaks. Students close notebooks, stretch, begin the shuffle toward the door. You gather your things slowly, reviewing your notes, already anxious about whether you captured everything important. Outside in the hallway, clusters of students compare notes, arguing about what the professor meant, whether his third point contradicted his first, if the reading assignment includes the appendices. You join a group heading toward the library, already planning to spend the afternoon reviewing, transcribing, trying to make sense of everything that just poured into your brain. Because this is how learning happens here, not through discussion or collaboration, not through questions and answers, but through the ancient ritual of one person speaking and 200 people listening, hoping that somewhere in the flood of words knowledge will take root. The library is a cathedral of silence. Rows of wooden tables stretch beneath high ceilings. The smell of old paper and floor wax fills the air. Librarians patrol the aisles like sentries, and whispering is grounds for expulsion from the premises. You enter through heavy oak doors that close behind you with a soft, decisive thud. The sound echoes briefly before being swallowed by the pervasive quiet. Immediately the noise of campus life vanishes, replaced by a hush so complete it feels almost physical, as if silence itself has weight and substance. The main reading room is vast, designed in an era when libraries were temples and knowledge was sacred. The ceiling vaults upward, supported by carved wooden beams darkened by age. Windows set high in the walls allow natural light to filter down in soft columns, illuminating dust motes that drift lazily through the air. Chandeliers hang at intervals, their electric bulbs shaped like candles, a nod to the building's 19th century origins. Rows of long wooden tables fill the centre of the room, each equipped with brass reading lamps with green glass shades. Students sit hunched over textbooks and notebooks, faces illuminated by the pools of warm light. The concentration is palpable. Everyone is working, and the collective focus creates an atmosphere that makes it almost impossible not to work yourself. The smell is distinctive and comforting. Old paper, leather bindings, floor wax applied weekly by maintenance staff who've been polishing these floors longer than you've been alive. Underneath it all is a faint mustiness, the accumulated scent of decades of books slowly aging, pages yellowing, knowledge growing fragile. You find an empty seat at a table near the window and set down your books as quietly as possible. Even the sound of a textbook meeting wood feels too loud. You pull out your notebook, uncap your pen slowly to minimize the click, and begin reviewing your notes from this morning's lecture. The librarians are everywhere and nowhere. You never see them moving, but they appear whenever needed, materializing beside students with overdue books or noisy study groups. Mrs. Henderson is the head librarian, a woman of indeterminate age who has worked here longer than anyone can remember. She wears her hair in a tight bun, spectacles on a chain around her neck, and sensible shoes that make no sound as she patrols the aisles. Her enforcement of silence is legendary. A whisper earns a sharp look. A second whisper earns a verbal warning. A third whisper results in expulsion, your name noted in a logbook kept at the front desk. Repeat offenders lose library privileges entirely. The rules are draconian, but they work. The library remains a sanctuary of quiet in a campus full of noise. The card catalogue occupies an entire wall. Rows of small wooden drawers, each containing hundreds of typed cards organised by author, title, and subject. Finding a book requires flipping through cards, writing down call numbers, then navigating the stacks to locate the volume. The system is slow, methodical, and requires patience. But there is something satisfying about the physicality of it, the tactile process of searching through cards, the small thrill when you find exactly what you need. The stacks extend deep into the building, floor after floor of shelves packed with the books. The aisles are narrow, lit by bare bulbs, smelling even more intensely of paper and age. You can lose yourself in the stacks, wandering between shelves, pulling volumes at random, discovering books you did not know existed. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes, until you feel completely alone with the accumulated knowledge of centuries. Study carrels line the perimeter of the reading room, small wooden alcoves with desks and chairs, reserved for upperclassmen working on theses. You watch them enviously, imagining the day when you too will have your own carrel, your own small territory in this cathedral of learning. The clock on the wall ticks loudly, each second marked by a mechanical click that somehow does not violate the silence. You glance up occasionally, startled by how much time has passed. Hours disappear in the library. You enter in the afternoon with a single chapter to read and emerge after dark, stiff from sitting, eyes aching from close reading, brain saturated with information. Around you, other students work with the same intensity. The young woman across the table is translating Latin, lips moving silently as she passes verb forms. The young man 2 seats down is solving equations, pages of calculations spreading across the desk. Everyone is engaged in their own private battle with knowledge, and the collective effort creates a kind of camaraderie, even without speaking. As evening approaches, the natural light fades and the reading lamps become essential. The library takes on a different character in the dark, more intimate, slightly mysterious. Shadows pool in the corners, the brass lamps glow warmly, students hunker down for long nights of study, fortified by vending machine coffee and determination. You gather your books eventually, quietly, trying not to disturb anyone. You nod to Mrs. Henderson as you pass the front desk. She nods back, approving, because you have followed the rules and honoured the silence. Outside, the campus is loud and chaotic and alive, but for a few hours you are somewhere else entirely, somewhere timeless, somewhere that will call you back tomorrow. Your typewriter is your most essential tool. It sits on your desk, heavy and mechanical, and every paper you write requires perfect accuracy, because correction fluid has not been invented yet, and starting over means starting completely over. The typewriter arrived with you in September, carried up the dorm stairs by your father, who grunted under its weight and made jokes about whether you were planning to write papers or anchor a boat. It is a royal, solid black metal with chrome trim. Keys arranged in the standard QWERTY layout that your fingers are still learning to navigate without looking. Setting it up required finding the right spot on your desk, a stable surface where vibrations would not shake the carriage, where the light from your desk lamp would illuminate the keys without creating glare. You experimented for days before settling on the current arrangement, slightly off-centre, angled so you can see both the keys and your reference materials without turning your head too much. The sound of typewriters is the soundtrack of dormitory life. Every evening from every room, the distinctive clatter of keys striking paper echoes through the hallways. Each typewriter has its own voice, some sharp and percussive, others deeper and more resonant. You learn to identify your neighbours by their typing rhythms. Mike types in furious bursts, attacking the keys like he is angry at them. The student next door types slowly, methodically, with long pauses between sentences. The student across the hall types at a steady, relentless pace that continues past midnight and sometimes into the early morning hours. Learning to type properly is a skill you acquired imperfectly in high school. You hunt and peck more than you would like to admit, searching for letters, occasionally hitting the wrong key, swearing softly when you realise you've just ruined a page that was nearly perfect. Because the unforgiving truth of typewriters is that mistakes are permanent. There is no delete key, no backspace that erases. Once the key strikes the ribbon and leaves its inky impression on paper, the only fix is to start the entire page over. Some students try to correct mistakes by typing over errors with X's or by using an eraser to scrub away letters. The results are always obvious, smudged and unprofessional. Professors frown on such attempts. A properly typed paper should be clean, unmarred, a demonstration of both thought and technical skill. Sloppy typing suggests sloppy thinking. Blue books are equally essential, but in a different way. They are thin booklets of lined paper with blue covers, sold at the campus bookstore for a nickel each. You accumulate them throughout the semester, stacking them on your desk, carrying them to exams like ammunition. Each blue book represents potential, empty pages waiting to be filled with essays proving what you have learned. Exam day means arriving with multiple blue books, usually 3 or 4, though some exams require more. You sit in the lecture hall, blue book stacked beside your elbow, and when the professor announces the exam questions, you open the first booklet and begin writing by hand. Your handwriting must be legible. Professors will not grade what they cannot read, but legibility must be balanced with speed, because exams are timed, and covering enough material requires writing quickly, continuously, without pause. Your hand cramps. The pen grows slippery in your grip. You flip to a new page, keep writing, glancing at the clock every few minutes, calculating whether you have enough time to finish the third essay question. Around you, other students write with the same desperate focus, everyone racing against time and the limits of their own knowledge. When the exam ends, you hand in a stack of blue books filled with your handwriting, pages and pages of arguments and evidence and analysis, all produced in 90 minutes under pressure. The professor will take them home, spend hours reading through them, and return them a week later with grades that will define your semester. Back in your dorm room, you return to the typewriter. Papers are due constantly. Essays for English, lab reports for biology, research papers for history. The process is always the same. Draft by hand first, working through ideas, crossing out sentences, rearranging paragraphs. Then, when the structure is solid, sit down at the typewriter and begin the careful work of transferring your thoughts to typed pages. You load paper into the carriage, rolling it until the top edge sits just above the platen. You set the margins using the small levers on each side. You check that the ribbon is properly threaded and still has enough ink. Then you begin typing, slowly at first, feeling your way through the rhythm, gaining speed as confidence builds. The keys require pressure. Your fingers press down firmly, and each press produces a satisfying mechanical response. The key rises, the hammer swings forward, the ribbon transfers ink to paper. The carriage shifts one space to the left. At the end of each line, a small bell dings, warning you to press the carriage return lever and start a new line. The motion becomes automatic. Type, ding, return, type, ding, return. Mistakes are devastating. You finish page 4 of a 7-page paper and realize you misspelled a word in the opening paragraph. The decision is agonizing. Start over and retype all 4 pages, or submit it with the error and hope the professor does not notice. Usually you start over. Pride and fear of bad grades outweigh the frustration. By midnight, your desk is littered with crumpled pages, false starts, botched paragraphs, near-perfect attempts ruined by typos. The wastebasket overflows. Your fingers ache. But finally, miraculously, you type the last sentence, pull the final page from the carriage, and stack your completed paper neatly, ready for submission. The typewriter sits silent now, waiting for tomorrow's assignment. The blue book sits stacked, waiting for the next exam. And you, exhausted but satisfied, finally allow yourself to sleep. The dining hall serves meals at specific hours, and if you miss them, you go hungry. The food is institutional, heavy on starches and mystery meat, served on segmented trays by women in hairnets who have seen generations of students come and go. Breakfast runs from 7 to 8:30, lunch from noon to 1:30, dinner from 5:30 to 7. These times are non-negotiable. The doors lock at the cut-off and latecomers are turned away regardless of excuses. Your meal plan is paid for, but that means nothing if you cannot arrive during the designated hours. Oversleeping on a Saturday means skipping breakfast entirely. An afternoon class running late means arriving to the dining hall just as the staff is clearing tables and shutting down. You learn to organise your day around these windows. Alarm clocks are set with enough buffer to dress, walk across campus, and arrive before the breakfast rush ends. Afternoon schedules are calculated to ensure you can reach the dining hall by 6 o'clock, early enough to get decent selections before the best options disappear. The building itself is utilitarian, constructed with all the aesthetic ambition of a warehouse. Brick exterior, fluorescent lighting inside, long rows of tables bolted to the floor. The ceiling is high and the acoustics unforgiving, which means the dining hall at capacity sounds like a gymnasium during a basketball game. Conversations echo, silverware clatters, Chairs scrape against linoleum. The noise is constant, overwhelming, and strangely comforting in its familiarity. You enter through double doors and immediately hit the tray line. Metal trays divided into compartments stacked at the beginning. You take one, noting the warmth from the industrial dishwasher it just passed through, and slide it along the metal rails as you move down the line. The women behind the counter are fixtures, as permanent as the building itself. Mrs. Porter has worked here for 30 years. Mrs. Chen arrived 2 decades ago and took over the dessert station. They wear matching uniforms, pale blue dresses, white aprons, hairnets that tame every strand. They serve with efficiency, not warmth, scooping portions with practiced movements, making sure everyone gets the same amount, no favourites, no exceptions. The menu rotates on a weekly cycle, predictable to the point of ritual. Monday is meatloaf, Tuesday is chicken, baked until it has the texture of paper. Wednesday is spaghetti with sauce that tastes more sweet than savoury. Thursday is mystery casserole, a combination of leftovers bound together with cream soup and breadcrumbs. Friday is fish, in deference to the Catholic students. Saturday and Sunday offer slightly better options, as if the administration believes weekends deserve marginal improvement. The food is not good, it is fuel, nothing more. Overcooked vegetables sit in metal pans, grey and limp. Potatoes arrive either mashed into submission or baked until the skin is tough as leather. The meat is often unidentifiable, protein shaped into patties or loaves or chunks, served with gravy designed to mask whatever is underneath. But you eat it anyway, because hunger is a powerful motivator and the alternatives are limited. The campus town has a few diners, but eating out requires money most students do not have. Vending machines offer candy bars and crackers, but they cannot sustain you through a full day of classes. So you take your tray, accept whatever is being served, and find a seat. The social dynamics of the dining hall are complex. Freshmen tend to cluster together, seeking comfort in shared confusion. Sophomores have established friend groups and claimed specific tables. Upperclassmen sit near the windows, exuding the confidence of people who have survived this experience long enough to feel ownership. You sit with Mike and a few other students from your floor, forming a loose alliance based on proximity rather than deep friendship. Conversation flows around shared complaints, professors, assignments, the cafeteria food itself. Someone always has a theory about what is actually in the mystery casserole. Someone else swears they saw a hair in yesterday's soup. The complaints are ritual, bonding through shared suffering. The dessert station is the only consistently popular stop. Sheet cake served in squares, frosted in colours that do not occur in nature. Pudding, thick and sweet. Cookies, hard enough to double as construction materials. Ice cream on Sundays, soft serve from a machine that breaks down monthly. Students linger over dessert, stretching the meal as long as possible, because the dining hall offers something dorm rooms do not: space, warmth, company. Staff begins clean-up while students are still eating. Women emerge from the kitchen with large grey bins, scraping plates, wiping tables, signalling through action that time is running out. By 7:15 the message is clear: finish and leave. By 7:30 the lights dim slightly. By closing time the doors are locked and the dining hall sits empty, waiting for breakfast to begin the cycle again. You leave with your hunger satisfied but not your appetite. The meal was adequate, nothing more. But as you walk back to your dormitory, you realise the dining hall serves a purpose beyond nutrition. It is a gathering place, a social hub, a guaranteed encounter with familiar faces. The food might be forgettable, but the community it creates, however temporary, matters more than anyone admits. If you are a woman, you have a curfew. 10 p.m. on weeknights, midnight on Saturdays. The dorm mother sits at the front desk with a clipboard, checking off names as students return, and there are consequences for tardiness that range from restrictions to expulsion. The system is designed with the precision of military protocol. Every woman living on campus must sign out when leaving the building and sign back in upon return. The logbook sits on the dorm mother's desk, a thick ledger with columns for name, time out, destination, time in. You fill it out dutifully every time you leave, even if you're just walking to the library, because the rules do not distinguish between a study session and a social outing. Mrs. Drummond is your dorm mother, a widow in her 60s who lives in a suite on the first floor and takes her responsibilities seriously. She sits at her desk each evening from 6 until midnight, reading mystery novels between check-ins, glancing up whenever the door opens. Her grey hair is always perfectly set. Her cardigan is always buttoned. Her expression is always somewhere between kindness and disapproval, ready to shift depending on your behaviour. The consequences for missing curfew are clearly outlined in the student handbook. First offence, a warning and a note in your file. Second offence, 2 weeks of restriction, meaning no leaving campus for any reason beyond classes. Third offence, meeting with the Dean of Women and possible suspension. Fourth offence, expulsion. The escalation is swift and merciless, designed to ensure compliance through fear as much as respect. You have seen it happen. A girl on the 3rd floor missed curfew by 15 minutes because her date's car broke down. She stood in Mrs. Drummond's office the next morning crying, explaining, pleading. Mrs. Drummond listened patiently and then issued the restriction anyway. Rules are rules. Exceptions create chaos. Understanding does not equal leniency. The curfew shapes everything. Social events end early, with women glancing at watches, calculating travel time back to the dorm. Dates are planned with military precision. Dinner at 6, movie at 7:30, back on campus by 9:45 to allow a buffer for saying goodnight. Study groups at the library dissolve by 9, women gathering their books and hurrying back while men stay behind, untethered by such restrictions. Saturday nights offer slight reprieve. Midnight feels luxurious compared to 10 p.m, almost adult. But even midnight arrives quickly when you're having fun, and the walk back to the dorm is always rushed. Groups of women speed walking across campus, heels clicking against pavement, hoping Mrs. Drummond's clock matches theirs. The sign-in process at night is ritual. You enter through the front door, walk to the desk, find your name in the ledger, and write the time in the appropriate column. Mrs. Drummond glances at the clock on the wall, comparing your reported time with reality. If they match, she nods. If they do not, she raises an eyebrow and makes a note. Some women try to game the system. A friend signs in for you while you stay out late, hoping Mrs. Drummond will not notice. But she always notices. She knows each woman by sight, by voice, by the particular sound of their footsteps on the stairs. The attempted deceptions result in harsher punishments than simple lateness would have earned. The rules extend beyond curfew. No men above the 1st floor ever. No alcohol in the building, even if you are of legal age. No loud music after 9 p.m. No guests overnight, not even family, without prior written approval. No hot plates or cooking equipment in rooms, fire hazard. No decorations that require nails or tacks, building preservation. The list goes on, each rule documented, each violation tracked. Your room is subject to inspection. Once a month, Mrs. Drummond and her assistant walk the floors, checking for contraband and code violations. They knock before entering, a courtesy, but entry is not optional. They open closets, check under beds, run fingers along windowsills for dust. Cleanliness is next to godliness, and both are expected. Some women resent the rules. whispering rebellion in late-night dorm room conversations, fantasizing about colleges where women are treated like adults instead of children requiring supervision. Others accept the structure, even finding comfort in its clarity. At least you know what is expected. At least the boundaries are defined. But everyone, regardless of personal feelings, follows the rules. Because the alternative is losing your place at the university, and that price is too high to pay for the sake of staying out past 10. Men and women live in separate dorms, and visiting is tightly regulated. Social hours happen on Sunday afternoons when male guests are allowed in female dorms, but only in common rooms, and only with the door open and at least 1 foot on the floor at all times. The announcement of social hours is posted on the bulletin board in the lobby. Sundays 2 p.m. to 5 p.m, first floor common room only. The rules are listed beneath in smaller print, each one underlined for emphasis, as if anticipation of violation requires preventative clarity. Sunday afternoon transforms the common room into a strange theatre of supervised courtship. Women clean the space beforehand, fluffing pillows on the worn couches, emptying ashtrays, straightening magazines on the coffee table. Someone always brings cookies from home, arranging them on a plate like offerings. The effort is part performance, part genuine hospitality, part nervous energy-seeking outlet. Male visitors arrive promptly at 2, clustered in the lobby, waiting for Mrs. Drummond to unlock the inner door that separates the public entry from the residential floors. She greets each young man by name, checks him against the sign-in sheet, and reminds him of the rules as if he has never heard them before. First floor only, common room only, door remains open, appropriate behaviour expected. The young men nod politely, seriously, as if receiving instructions for defusing bombs rather than sitting on a sofa. They file into the common room where women wait with practiced casualness, pretending they were not watching the door for the past 10 minutes. The atmosphere is stiff and awkward, despite everyone's best efforts. Couples sit on couches, separated by carefully maintained distance. They talk quietly, laugh at appropriate moments, and position their bodies in ways that suggest both interest and propriety. The dorm mother stations herself in a chair near the door, knitting or reading but always watching. Her presence is intended to provide supervision, but it achieves something closer to surveillance. The foot on the floor rule is enforced literally. If both people on the couch have both feet on the furniture, the dorm mother clears her throat meaningfully. Someone's foot must remain on the floor at all times, a physical tether to decency. The logic is never explained. Perhaps elevated feet suggest reclining, and reclining suggests intimacy, and intimacy must be prevented at all costs. Conversations during social hours follow safe scripts. Classes, professors, upcoming exams, weekend plans, deeper topics feel inappropriate under such scrutiny. Romance, such as it is, must be conducted through glances and carefully worded phrases, coded language that expresses feeling without violating decorum. Some couples bring homework, spreading textbooks across the coffee table, studying together while maintaining the appearance of proper distance. It is efficient if unromantic, a way to spend time together within the bounds of what is allowed. Others simply sit making small talk, counting down the hours until 5 p.m, when freedom and privacy can be reclaimed elsewhere. The dorm mother's knitting needles click steadily, a metronome marking time. She glances up occasionally, scanning the room, ensuring compliance. If a couple leans too close, she coughs. If voices drop to whispers, she shifts in her chair, a reminder that nothing is private here. Younger women, freshmen mostly, sometimes sit in the common room even without visitors, observing the social hour dynamics like anthropologists studying foreign customs. They whisper commentary to each other, giggling at awkward moments, filing away information about how courtship works in this strange, regulated environment. By 4:30, the room begins to empty. Couples have exhausted safe conversation topics. The performance of propriety grows tiresome. Young men make excuses about studying, about evening obligations, about needing to return to their own dorms before dinner. They shake hands goodbye, because embracing would be inappropriate, and file back through the lobby where Mrs. Drummond checks them out with the same ceremonial attention she used to check them in. At 5 p.m, sharp, social hours end. Any remaining male visitors are politely but firmly ushered out. The door locks behind them. The common room returns to its usual function. Study space, television room, place where women gather without performance or supervision. The women left behind collapse onto couches, exhaling tension, laughing about the absurdity of it all. Someone always makes a joke about the foot rule. Someone else imitates Mrs. Drummond's meaningful throat clearing. The laughter is edged with frustration, because as ridiculous as the rules seem, they are real and enforced, and shape every interaction between men and women on this campus. Later, as you climb the stairs to your room, you think about the couples you saw today, trying to connect under impossible conditions. You wonder if genuine relationships can form when every interaction is supervised, regulated, constrained by rules designed to prevent the very intimacy that makes relationships meaningful. But then you remember this is 1963, and questioning such rules aloud is not yet widely acceptable. So you keep the thoughts to yourself and prepare for another week of navigating boundaries you did not create, but must nonetheless respect. The student union is the beating heart of campus social life. It smells like cigarette smoke and burnt coffee. Students gather between classes, sprawling across worn couches, debating politics, sharing notes and planning protests. The building sits at the center of campus, a squat brick structure built in the 30s, expanded in the 50s, showing its age in cracked linoleum and water-stained ceiling tiles. But its shabbiness only adds to its character, makes it feel lived in and loved, a space that belongs to students rather than administrators. You enter through double doors that never locked, even late at night. The lobby opens into a large common room filled with mismatched furniture donated by alumni or salvage from dormitory renovations. Couches with sagging cushions, armchairs with duct-taped upholstery, coffee tables scarred with cigarette burns and carved initials from students who wanted to leave their mark. The air is thick with smoke. Everyone smokes. Students light cigarettes between classes, during conversations, while studying, while doing nothing at all. Ashtrays overflow on every surface. The smoke hangs in layers, blue-grey clouds drifting towards ceiling fans that push the haze around without removing it. Non-smokers do not complain because non-smokers barely exist. This is simply what air smells like in 1963. The coffee station sits against the far wall, a large urn that brews continuously from 6 a.m. until midnight. The coffee is terrible, burnt and bitter, but it is cheap and caffeinated and available. Students pour it into paper cups, add sugar and powdered creamer from dispensers that are perpetually sticky, and drink it anyway. Complaints about the coffee are constant and ritualistic, but no one stops drinking it. Groups cluster around tables and couches, engaged in the serious business of being young and intellectual. Political debates rage with the intensity of people who believe their opinions might actually change the world. Civil rights, Vietnam, labor unions, nuclear disarmament. Voices rise, arguments sharpen, friendships strain and then recover over the course of a single afternoon. A group of philosophy majors occupies the corner near the window, smoking pipes instead of cigarettes, affecting the mannerisms of the professors they admire. They argue about existentialism, throwing around terms like authenticity and bad faith. with the confidence of people who have just discovered these concepts and believe they are the first to truly understand them. Near the jukebox, a different crowd gathers. These students feed nickels into the machine, playing folk music, rock and roll, anything with a beat. They tap their feet, snap their fingers, occasionally break into spontaneous dancing that disrupts studying, but generates more smiles than complaints. The jukebox is democracy in action. Whoever has a nickel gets to choose the soundtrack. The bulletin board covers an entire wall, layered with flyers announcing events, advertising textbooks for sale, seeking roommates, promoting causes. Vietnam teach-in this Friday. Folk concert Saturday night. Freedom Riders, Mujin, Mujin, Mujin. Every flyer competes for attention, edges curling, corners torn where students ripped off phone number tabs. You find an empty spot on a couch and settle in with your textbook, intending to study between classes. But concentration is difficult here. Conversations pull your attention. Someone argues loudly about segregation. Someone else strums a guitar badly, but enthusiastically. A couple sits too close, whispering, ignoring everyone around them. The student union is where information flows. You learn about parties, protests, study groups, opportunities. Someone is driving to the city this weekend, offering rides. Someone else heard that Professor Mitchell is cancelling Friday's class. A third person swears the cafeteria is serving something edible for dinner tonight, though no one quite believes it. It is also where movements begin. The civil rights group meets here every Tuesday, planning demonstrations, drafting letters to congressmen, organising carpools to marches in neighbouring cities. The anti-war coalition gathers on Thursdays, printing flyers on a mimeograph machine someone liberated from an administrator's office, planning protests that will grow larger and more frequent as the war escalates. The campus newspaper operates out of a small office in the basement, accessible through stairs near the coffee station. Student journalists work at desks piled with typewriters and stacks of paper, writing editorials that challenge university policies, investigating stories that administrators wish would disappear. The newspaper pushes boundaries weekly, and the student union is where each issue gets dissected, debated, celebrated, or condemned. By evening, the crowd shifts. Serious studiers head to the library. Social butterflies migrate toward fraternity houses or off-campus parties. What remains is a core group of regulars, students who treat the union as their primary residence, who know the rhythms of the space, who claim the same seats night after night. You stay until the coffee urn runs dry, and the maintenance staff begins stacking chairs, a signal that even this space has limits. You gather your books, now thoroughly unread, and step back into the cold night air. The student union remains lit behind you, windows glowing warmly, the heart of campus still beating even as the rest of the university settles into sleep. Football season transforms the campus. Homecoming weekend brings alumni back by the thousands. Fraternities host parties that spill into the streets. The stadium fills with cheering crowds, and the entire town smells like hot dogs and beer. The shift begins on Thursday. Classes are less focused, professors acknowledging the reality that no one is truly present mentally. Students wear school colours, jerseys with the numbers of star players, hats and scarves in the university's official shades. The bookstore sells out of pennants and pins. The energy is palpable, crackling through the quad like electricity before a storm. Friday is parade day. The main street through town closes to traffic at noon. Floats constructed by fraternities and sororities roll past slowly, decorated with crepe paper and chicken wire sculptures, blaring music from mounted speakers. Marching band members, sweating in wool uniforms, play fight songs on repeat. Cheerleaders, walk alongside, waving and shouting chants that the crowd echoes back enthusiastically. Alumni arrive in waves, flooding the campus in groups organised by graduation year. They wear Letterman jackets from decades past, some still fitting, others straining at the seams. They gather in clusters, pointing at buildings, swapping stories about professors long retired, parties long legendary, pranks that have calcified into mythology. They move through campus like ghosts revisiting their youth, both thrilled and unsettled by how much has changed and how much has stayed exactly the same. The fraternities open their doors, transforming houses into party venues. Kegs appear on front lawns despite university alcohol policies that everyone agrees to ignore for this one weekend. Music blares from open windows. Students and alumni mingle, united by shared allegiance to the university and a collective agreement that rules are optional when the football team is winning. You navigate the chaos with a mix of excitement and overwhelm. The normally quiet campus has become something unrecognisable, louder, looser, more chaotic. Strangers high-five you on the sidewalk. Alumni ask if you are enjoying your time here, their nostalgia making them generous with advice and stories. Everyone seems happier, more connected, bound by something larger than individual experience. Saturday morning arrives crisp and clear, perfect football weather. The stadium gates open at 10 for a noon kickoff. You join the river of people flowing toward the concrete structure on the edge of campus, its arches visible from anywhere on campus, a monument to the importance of athletics in university life. Inside, the stadium is a sensory assault. Hot dog vendors work grills that belch smoke and the smell of charred meat. Beer, though officially forbidden, flows freely from flasks and smuggled cans. The crowd fills the stands, a sea of school colours, faces painted, voices hoarse before the game even begins. The marching band takes the field for pre-game, their formations precise, their sound enormous. The crowd stands for the fight song, singing along with an intensity usually reserved for religious hymns. Elderly alumni sing with closed eyes, transported to their own youth. Current students sing with arms around each other's shoulders, already creating memories they will revisit decades from now. The team enters to deafening applause. Players in helmets and pads, impossibly large, running through a paper banner that tears dramatically. The cheerleaders lead chants. The drumline pounds rhythms that shake your chest. The referee blows the whistle and the game begins. You understand football only vaguely, enough to follow the basics but not enough to appreciate the strategy. But understanding is not required. The energy carries you. Every first down brings cheers. Every touchdown brings pandemonium. Strangers hug you when the home team scores. Everyone stamps their feet in unison, making the bleachers vibrate, creating a physical sensation of collective will. Halftime brings the marching band back, performing elaborate routines, spelling out letters with their bodies, playing medleys that blend into one continuous blast of sound. Alumni buy more hot dogs, students sneak drinks, everyone uses the bathroom, creating lines 50 people deep. The second half intensifies everything. If the game is close, the tension becomes unbearable. Every play matters. The crowd groans at mistakes, roars at successes. If the team is winning comfortably, the atmosphere shifts towards celebration. Students already planning post-game parties, alumni already composing the stories they will tell about this weekend. The final whistle brings either euphoria or despair, no middle ground. If the home team wins, the stadium empties into a celebration that spreads across campus and into town. Students rush the field, tearing down goalposts, chanting fight songs. Fraternities throw impromptu parties. The bars fill beyond capacity. The entire weekend builds toward this moment, and the joy is uncontainable. If the team loses, the mood deflates quickly. People file out quietly, shoulders slumped, already making excuses or assigning blame. But even in loss, there is camaraderie, a shared experience of hoping and failing together. By Sunday morning, the campus is trashed and hungover. Empty cups litter lawns. Fraternity houses smell like stale beer and regret. Alumni pack their cars and drive away, already nostalgic for a weekend that ended hours ago. Students sleep late, recovering, facing the reality that homework still exists, and Monday will arrive regardless. But for one weekend, football unified the campus in a way nothing else does. Divisions of class year, major, social status dissolved into collective identity. For 48 hours, everyone belonged to something bigger. And that feeling, fleeting as it was, mattered more than anyone expected. Fraternities and sororities dominate the social landscape. Rush Week is a carefully choreographed ritual of parties, interviews and judgment. If you receive a bid, you belong. If you do not, you navigate campus social life from the outside. Rush begins the second week of September, after new students have arrived but before classes demand full attention. The timing is strategic, catching freshmen while they are still disoriented and desperate for belonging, before they have established friendships or found alternative communities. The fraternity and sorority houses line a single street on the edge of campus, large Victorian structures converted into residences decades ago. Each house has its reputation, its identity, its place in the carefully maintained hierarchy. The jocks live here, the rich kids live there, the intellectuals claim this house, the party animals dominate that one. Everyone knows the rankings, even if no one says them aloud. For men, Rush is aggressive and exhausting. Fraternity members canvass the freshman dorms, knocking on doors, introducing themselves with practiced enthusiasm, handing out invitations to parties. You're invited everywhere the first few nights, every house competing for the same pool of potential members. The invitations feel flattering until you realize they are distributed indiscriminately. Everyone gets invited. Selection comes later. The parties are loud, crowded, hot. Houses packed beyond reasonable capacity, music blaring, kegs tapped, brothers circulating through the crowd with calculated friendliness. They shake your hand, ask where you're from, what you're studying, whether you played sports in high school. The questions feel like interviews disguised as conversations, evaluations hidden behind smiles. You attend 3, 4, 5 parties in a single night, moving from house to house with groups of other freshmen, comparing notes between stops. That house seemed nice. This one was too intense. Those guys were fake. Everyone is performing, both the Rushies and the brothers, auditioning for roles in a social structure that will define the next 4 years. For women, the process is even more formalized and brutal. Sorority Rush operates on a structured schedule. Philanthropy round, sisterhood round, preference round, bid day. Each round cuts more women, narrowing the pool until only the chosen remain. The sororities judge your appearance, your wardrobe, your background, your conversational skills. You're rated, ranked, discussed in closed meetings where your fate is decided by women you met for 15 minutes. The outfits matter enormously. Women spend weeks planning rush wardrobes, buying dresses they cannot afford, curling hair until it hurts, applying makeup with the precision of soldiers preparing for battle. You change clothes between rounds, each outfit carefully selected to project the right image for each specific house. Conservative for this sorority, fashionable for that one, Southern belle charm for the traditional house, modern sophistication for the progressive one. The conversations are torture. 30 minutes of small talk with strangers who are evaluating you while pretending to befriend you. You smile until your face aches. You laugh at jokes that are not funny. You answer the same questions over and over, refining your responses each time, learning what gets positive reactions and what causes eyes to glaze over. At night, after the rounds end, you return to your dorm exhausted and anxious. Your roommate asks how it went. You say fine, because admitting vulnerability feels dangerous when everyone is competing for the same limited spots. You lie awake wondering if you said the wrong thing, wore the wrong dress, smiled too much, or not enough. The cuts are announced via sealed envelopes slipped under dorm room doors early in the morning. You wake to the sound of paper sliding across linoleum. Your stomach drops. You wait, gathering courage, before finally opening the envelope to see which houses still want you and which have dropped you without explanation. Some women are cut from every house. They sit in their rooms crying, humiliated, trying to understand what was wrong with them. Others get invitations from houses they do not want, forcing impossible decisions between acceptance and continued rejection. The whole process is designed to create hierarchy, to sort women into categories of desirable and undesirable, wanted and unwanted. By preference round, only a few houses remain for each woman. You visit them one final time, listening to speeches about sisterhood and tradition, watching presentations about philanthropy and values. Then you rank your choices and wait, powerless, while the sororities deliberate. Bid day is either triumph or tragedy. Envelopes arrive again, thicker this time, containing either a bid or nothing. Women who receive bids scream, cry, run to designated meeting spots where their new sisters wait with signs and songs. Women who receive nothing pack the rejection into a mental box they will carry for years. For men, the process is less structured but equally intense. Fraternities extend bids privately, pulling freshmen aside at parties or calling them to house meetings. Some freshmen receive multiple bids and must choose. Others receive none and must accept that fraternity life is closed to them. The men who accept bids become pledges, beginning a semester of hazing disguised as tradition. They clean the house, serve at parties, memorize Greek alphabets and house histories, submit to rituals designed to prove commitment. The pledging process is physically and emotionally draining, occasionally dangerous, but complaining is forbidden and quitting is shameful. Those who survive emerge as brothers or sisters, granted access to a social network that will shape friendships, dating prospects, future career connections. They gain status, identity, belonging. They also gain obligations, dues, mandatory participation in activities they may not enjoy. Those who remain outside the Greek system navigate campus differently, independently, sometimes more freely. But they also watch from the periphery as fraternity and sorority members dominate student government, plan the biggest parties, occupy the best seats at football games, and generally treat the campus as their inherited territory. Rush weekends, but its effects last forever. Who belongs and who does not has been decided. The social architecture is set, and everyone, Greek or independent, learns to live within the structure that Rush created. The civil rights movement is not distant history. It is happening now. Students organize sit-ins, freedom rides, and voter registration drives. The campus newspaper runs editorials that spark heated debates in every classroom. You cannot escape it, even if you wanted to. Civil rights permeates everything: lectures, conversations, cafeteria debates, flyers stapled to every available surface. Professors incorporate it into lesson plans whether or not the subject seems related. History classes discuss current events alongside past ones. English classes analyze speeches by Martin Luther King Jr. alongside Shakespeare. Even chemistry lectures occasionally digress into metaphors about catalysts for change. The campus civil rights group meets Tuesdays in the student union basement, a cramped room with folding chairs and chalkboard covered in scrawled plans. The core membership is small, maybe 20 committed students, but attendance swells when major actions are planned. Some students come out of genuine commitment to justice. Others come because activism feels important, intellectual, the thing serious students do. A few come because they are bored and protests provide excitement. The meetings run long, stretching from 7 p.m. until midnight or later. Discussions circle around strategy, tactics, philosophy. Should we work within the system or challenge it directly? Is non-violent protest sufficient, or does it enable gradualism? Can white students truly understand black suffering, or are we performing allyship? The debates are intense, exhausting, occasionally heated. Friendships form and fracture based on ideological differences measured in degrees. Most people outside the room would consider insignificant. Plans emerge slowly, democratically, painfully. A sit-in at the segregated lunch counter downtown. A freedom ride to Mississippi during spring break. A voter registration drive in the predominantly black neighborhood that borders campus. Each action requires logistics, transportation, food, legal support, media outreach. Students volunteer for tasks dividing labor, building movements from enthusiasm and improvisation. The sit-in happens on a Saturday. 30 students walk downtown to Miller's Diner, a restaurant that refuses to serve black customers despite the Civil Rights Act passed last year. You enter together, filling the counter and booths, integrated groups sitting side by side. The manager appears immediately, face red, voice loud. "You'll have to leave. We don't serve your kind here." He points at the black students, not even pretending subtlety. No one moves. "We're not leaving until everyone is served," someone says calmly. The manager threatens to call police. "Go ahead," someone else replies. The threat is not empty. Within minutes, 2 police officers arrive, hands on belts, expressions hard. The officers order everyone out. The students sit silently, linking arms, making themselves heavy and difficult to move. The manager yells. Other customers watch, some sympathetic, others hostile, a few filming with home movie cameras. Someone starts singing "We Shall Overcome," and the song spreads through the group, voices joining one by one. The arrests are not gentle. Officers grab students, drag them toward the door, load them into police cars. You are arrested too, hands cuffed behind your back, pushed into a vehicle that smells like vinyl and vomit. The fear is real and immediate. Your parents will be furious. The university might expel you. Future employers might reject you for having a record. But underneath the fear is something else. Pride, purpose, the sense of participating in something larger than yourself. At the station, you're booked, fingerprinted, photographed. The process is designed to intimidate, and it works. You sit in a holding cell for hours before a lawyer from the NAACP arrives to post bail. By evening, you're released, shaken but unharmed, walking back to campus with other students who wear their arrests like medals. The campus newspaper covers the sit-in on Monday's front page. The administration issues a statement condemning both segregation and student lawlessness in carefully balanced language that satisfies no one. Professors divide in their reactions. Some praise the students' courage, others criticize the disruption. A few threaten academic consequences for missing classes to protest. Debates rage across campus. In the dining hall, students argue about whether civil disobedience is justified. In dormitories, late-night conversations probe questions of morality, legality, effectiveness. Some students attend rallies and teach-ins, educating themselves about the movement's history and goals. Others tune out entirely, resentful of politics invading their college experience. Freedom rides are more intense, more dangerous. Students pile into cars and buses, driving south to Mississippi and Alabama, where local activists need support. They register black voters who have been systematically disenfranchised through literacy tests and poll taxes. They face threats, violence, arrest. Not everyone returns unharmed. A junior named Marcus travels to Selma and returns with bruises and stories that silence the dining hall when he tells them. He speaks at a campus rally, voice shaking, describing what it feels like to be beaten for helping someone fill out a voter registration form. His testimony converts skeptics, recruiting new activists, intensifying commitment among those already involved. But not everyone supports the movement. Southern students, particularly those from wealthy families with histories tied to segregation, resist vocally. They write counter-editorials accusing activists of being communists, troublemakers, outside agitators. They organise their own meetings, though smaller and less visible, arguing for gradualism and states' rights. The tension is real and constant. Friendships break over politics. Roommates stop speaking to each other. Relationships end because one person protests and the other condemns protesters. The campus divides, not cleanly but messily, along lines of commitment, belief, and fear. You attend more meetings, more protests. You skip classes occasionally to participate in demonstrations. Your grades slip slightly, but the work feels important in ways chemistry homework does not. You're watching history happen and choosing to be part of it, contributing, however you can, to bending the arc toward justice. Years later, you will look back on this time and feel complicated emotions. Pride in participating, shame for not doing more, anger at how slow progress was, gratitude for the friendships formed in struggle. The movement shaped you in ways you will spend decades understanding. But right now, in 1963, you're just a college student trying to reconcile academic obligations with moral imperatives, learning that education happens both in classrooms and in the streets, and discovering that staying silent is itself a choice with consequences you're no longer willing to accept. Vietnam looms over everything. Male students check their draft numbers like obsessive lottery players. Protests erupt on the quad. Some students burn draft cards, others enlist. Everyone has an opinion, and most friendships are tested by disagreement. The war exists in two places simultaneously. On television screens showing footage of jungles and helicopters, and in the immediate reality of campus life, where every male student between 18 and 26 is potentially draftable. The connection between those two realities creates constant grinding anxiety that shapes every conversation, every decision, every plan for the future. The draft lottery system means your future is determined by birthday. The numbers are drawn randomly, announced on the radio, published in newspapers. If your number is low, induction is almost certain. If your number is high, you might escape. The middle range offers only uncertainty. Male students gather around radios and televisions during lottery announcements, listening with the intensity of people hearing medical diagnoses, because that is essentially what this is, a diagnosis of your immediate future. Mike's number is 37, low enough to guarantee he will be called up after graduation unless something changes. He sits on his bed when he learns, silent for a full minute before finally saying, "Well, that's that." His voice is flat, resigned. You do not know what to say. Sorry feels inadequate. It'll be okay feels dishonest. So you sit with him in silence, sharing the weight of futures neither of you can control. Some students pursue deferments with the desperation of people trying to avoid fate. Graduate school provides automatic deferment, so applications to master's programs surge. Marriage offers deferment for some, leading to rushed engagements and weddings planned more around draft schedules than love. Teaching positions provide deferment, suddenly making education attractive to students who never considered it previously. Others pursue medical deferments, real or exaggerated. Old sports injuries are revisited with doctors. Psychological conditions are emphasized or invented. Some students gain weight intentionally, hoping to fail fitness standards. The ethics are murky, the desperation clear. Everyone understands that one person's deferment means someone else takes their place, but survival instinct overrides solidarity. A small but visible group of students enlists voluntarily. They believe in the war, or believe in duty, or believe that choosing military service offers more control than waiting for the draft. They walk through campus in recruiting office paperwork, receiving mixed reactions. Some students thank them for their service, others call them murderers. The volunteers defend their choices with varying degrees of confidence, some certain, others clearly wrestling with doubt. The anti-war movement grows larger and louder throughout the semester. Protests that started small, maybe 24 students holding signs on the quad, expand into major demonstrations blocking traffic and disrupting classes. Students occupy the administration building, demanding the university divest from defense contractors and ban military recruiters from campus. The occupations last for days, creating tent cities and hallways, transforming academic spaces into sites of resistance. You attend a teach-in on the war, curious and conflicted. The event fills the largest lecture hall on campus, every seat taken, students sitting in aisles and standing against walls. Professors and visiting speakers present arguments against the war, the history of French colonialism in Vietnam, the dubious Gulf of Tonkin incident, the moral bankruptcy of supporting authoritarian regimes in the name of fighting communism. The arguments are compelling, delivered with academic rigor and moral urgency, but you leave more confused than when you arrived. Is the war unjust, or is opposition to it naive? Are protesters brave truth-tellers or privileged children avoiding sacrifice? Can you support troops while opposing the war, or is that intellectual cowardice? The questions multiply faster than answers. Draft card burning happens at a rally in November. A group of students stands at the front of the quad, holding their draft cards above their heads. One by one, they light them on fire, small flames consuming the official documents that mark them as property of the selective service system. The crowd reacts with cheers, gasps, angry shouts. Campus police photograph the burners, documenting the federal crime unfolding before them. You watch from the edge of the crowd, simultaneously moved and terrified. The burners face 5 years in federal prison if prosecuted. They are sacrificing their futures to make a statement, gambling that moral witness outweighs legal consequences. The courage is undeniable. So is the privilege, the awareness that their backgrounds and educations might protect them from the harshest penalties. Not everyone opposes the war. Conservative students organize counter-protests, holding signs supporting troops and presidents. They argue that opposing the war betrays soldiers risking their lives. They claim protesters are communists, cowards, spoiled children who do not understand freedom's cost. The two sides shout at each other across the quad, exchanges growing heated, occasionally physical. A student named Tom enlists in January and ships out for basic training in February. Before he leaves, his fraternity throws a party, awkward and sad, everyone drinking too much and pretending Tom is heading to adventure rather than potential death. Tom gives a short speech about duty and honour, his voice wavering. Some students applaud, others cannot look at him. He writes letters from Vietnam which his fraternity brothers read aloud at meetings. The letters start optimistic, describing training, boredom, heat. Later letters grow darker, mentioning things he cannot fully describe, referring obliquely to experiences that clearly haunt him. By spring the letters stop. Rumours circulate. He is fine, just busy. He is wounded. He is dead. No one knows for certain until his parents arrive on campus in April, faces hollow, confirming what everyone feared. The memorial service fills the chapel. Students who barely knew Tom attend, needing to witness, to process, to confront the reality that war is not abstract debate but flesh and blood and permanent absence. The university president speaks about sacrifice. The campus minister prays for peace. Tom's girlfriend sobs in the front pew, clutching a folded flag. After the service, the anti-war protests grow larger and angrier. Students who were ambivalent become committed. The personal has clarified the political. Tom's death does not make everyone oppose the war. Some students double down on supporting it, arguing his sacrifice must mean something, but it makes ignoring the war impossible. You still do not know what you believe. Some days you're convinced the war is immoral and must end immediately. Other days you worry that opposing it abandons those already fighting. You attend protests but do not burn your draft card. You argue against the war but thank military veterans. The contradiction is uncomfortable, but so is everything about Vietnam. The semester ends with the war still raging and the campus still divided. Male students head home for summer, uncertain whether they will return in the fall or receive induction notices instead. Everyone hugs goodbye more tightly than usual, aware that nothing is guaranteed, that the next semester might arrive with empty seats where friends used to sit. Vietnam has changed campus life fundamentally. Academics feel less urgent when survival is uncertain. Social hierarchies feel less important when death is possible. The future, once assumed and planned for, now feels contingent, fragile, potentially very short. And all of you, whether you support or oppose the war, whether you will be drafted or deferred, carry this weight together, bound by an anxiety that previous generations of college students never had to face. Dating follows strict protocols. A young man asks a young woman to dinner, picks her up at her dorm, signs her out with the dorm mother, and has her back before curfew. Holding hands is acceptable. Anything more is scandalous. The process begins with the ask, which carries enormous weight and anxiety. Young men strategize for days before approaching the women they are interested in. Where to ask, when, how to phrase the invitation to sound confident but not presumptuous. The stakes feel impossibly high, as if a single date might determine the entire future. You work up courage for a week before finally approaching Sarah after English class. She is smart, funny, from a small town in Pennsylvania, and you have been inventing excuses to talk to her since September. Would you like to have dinner Saturday, you ask, voice steadier than you feel. She smiles, says yes, and you walk away convinced you just accomplished something significant. Saturday arrives with its own anxieties. What to wear, where to take her, how much money to bring. You settle on slacks, a button-down shirt, and a sweater, the unofficial uniform of college men attempting to look mature. You walk to her dormitory at precisely the agreed time, neither early nor late, because timing communicates respect. The dorm mother summons Sarah through the intercom system, a crackly announcement that echoes through the building. You wait in the lobby, straightening your collar, reviewing conversation topics mentally, trying to calm nerves that feel disproportionate to the situation. Sarah appears on the stairs wearing a dress and cardigan, hair styled carefully, looking nervous in exactly the same way you feel nervous. You sign her out in the logbook, noting destination and expected return time. The dorm mother reminds you of curfew as if you might have forgotten in the 5-minute walk from your dorm to hers. 10 p.m. sharp. You nod, promise compliance, and finally escape the lobby supervision. The walk into town is awkward at first. You make small talk about classes, professors, the weather. The conversation feels stilted, performative, each of you aware that the other is performing. But gradually, as the dorm recedes behind you, the tension eases. Sarah mentions a book she's reading. You have read it too. The conversation finds its rhythm, becoming genuine rather than scripted. Dinner happens at Romano's, a small Italian restaurant 2 blocks off campus that caters primarily to students. The prices are reasonable, the portions large, the atmosphere casual enough that you do not feel completely out of place. You hold the door for Sarah, pull out her chair, try to remember all the etiquette lessons your mother insisted were important. The meal unfolds pleasantly. You talk about families, hometowns, what you might do after graduation. Sarah wants to teach. You're considering law school, though the draft makes all plans tentative. She asks thoughtful questions. You ask questions back. The conversation reveals compatibility, shared values, enough differences to stay interesting. You do not talk about politics or religion, or anything too controversial. First dates require neutrality, safe topics that allow both people to present their best selves without risk of conflict. Depth comes later, if there is a later. After dinner, you walk slowly back toward campus, deliberately inefficient routing that stretches the evening as long as curfew allows. The night is cool, stars visible despite town lights. At some point, your hands brush accidentally, then less accidentally, then deliberately. Sarah does not pull away. You hold hands openly, a statement that this date went well enough to signal interest in another. The walk back feels too short despite your attempts to slow time. The dorm appears too quickly, lit windows marking the end of the evening. You stop on the steps outside the front door, facing each other, the moment stretching awkwardly. Goodnight kisses are complicated, permitted but fraught. Too aggressive is disrespectful. Too tentative suggests disinterest. You lean in slowly, telegraphing intention, giving Sarah time to pull away if she wants. She does not pull away. The kiss is brief, chaste, appropriate for a first date under dormitory lights, where the dorm mother might glance out at any moment. Sarah smiles, says she had a nice time, and disappears into the dorm. You walk back to your own dormitory floating slightly, replaying the evening mentally, already planning to ask her out again. Second and third dates follow the same pattern. Dinner, conversation, hand-holding, goodnight kiss on the dorm steps. The repetition creates comfort, familiarity. You learn Sarah's stories, her dreams, her fears. She learns yours. The relationship develops within the narrow channels permitted by university rules. Physical intimacy progresses glacially by modern standards. Holding hands leads to arm around shoulders during movies. Goodnight kisses grow longer, less chaste. You spend social hours together on Sunday afternoons in the common room, sitting close on the couch, Mrs. Drummond watching but tolerating proximity that would have been scandalous weeks earlier. But anything beyond kissing is forbidden territory, both by university rules and social norms. Young women who engage in premarital sex risk reputation destruction. Young men who push too hard are considered ungentlemanly at best, dangerous at worst. The boundaries are clear and enforced by layers of social pressure, religious teaching, and fear of consequences. Some couples navigate these rules by finding privacy where they can. Parked cars, empty classrooms, wooded areas at the edge of campus. The fumbling experimentation happens in stolen moments, always rushed, always nervous about being caught. The thrill is mixed with guilt, the pleasure complicated by the knowledge that discovery would bring serious consequences. By spring, you and Sarah are recognized as a couple. You eat meals together, study in the library side by side, attend events as a unit. Friends treat you as inseparable. Professors notice and occasionally tease about young love. The relationship has moved from casual dating to something more serious, more committed. The question becomes, what happens next? Dating in college exists in strange limbo. Too serious to be casual, too young for marriage, too constrained by rules to progress naturally. Some couples get engaged senior year, planning weddings for shortly after graduation. Others date for years, waiting until careers are established and futures more certain. You do not know yet what will happen with Sarah. But for now, navigating courtship within the strict rules of 1963 campus life, you are content to hold hands, share goodnight kisses, and believe that whatever comes next will unfold at its own pace, guided by feelings that transcend the arbitrary rules trying to contain them. Friday and Saturday nights follow predictable patterns: fraternity parties, mixers, dances in the gymnasium with live bands playing songs you will remember for the rest of your life. Everyone dresses up, dances close, and tries to look older than they feel. The weekend starts officially at 4 p.m, Friday, when the last classes end and students pour out of academic buildings with the relief of prisoners granted parole. Dormitories transform immediately, hallways filling with music from competing radios, voices calling between rooms, the collective energy of people preparing to forget about homework for 48 hours. Preparation is ritual. You shower, shave carefully, comb your hair with more attention than it receives most mornings. Your roommate Mike does the same, both of you navigating the tiny room with practiced efficiency, avoiding collisions as you dress in clothes reserved for social occasions rather than classes. By 7 p.m, campus paths fill with students moving between dormitories and fraternity houses, couples walking together, groups of friends travelling in clusters for safety and confidence. The air is charged with possibility, the sense that tonight could be the night something memorable happens, though usually nothing more than moderate fun and some awkward conversations. Fraternity parties dominate the weekend social scene. The houses throw open their doors, music blasting from speakers set in windows, kegs tapped in basements, brothers stationed at entrances, checking for invited guests and turning away unwanted crashers. The stated guest lists are fiction. The real rule is simple: attractive women enter freely. Men need connections or courage. Inside, the parties are hot, loud, chaotic. Too many bodies packed into spaces designed for half as many. The air thick with cigarette smoke, spilled beer, and the collective sweat of people dancing with more enthusiasm than skill. Conversations happen at shouting volume, faces inches apart to be heard over music that thumps through walls and floors. You nurse a beer, warm and cheap, trying to look comfortable while scanning the room for familiar faces. Mike has already disappeared into the crowd, more socially adept than you. Comfortable in chaos you find overwhelming. You spot Sarah across the room, wave, and navigate through the crowd to reach her. Mixers are slightly more structured, organised by fraternities and sororities together, with themes that require costumes or at least coordination. Decades dance, tropical party, western night. The themes are excuses for more elaborate decorations and slightly different musical selections, but the underlying dynamics remain the same. Students drinking, dancing, flirting, trying to connect in rooms too crowded for genuine conversation. The best nights are gymnasium dances. The university sponsors them monthly, transforming the basketball court into a ballroom with decorations hung from rafters and folding chairs arranged around the perimeter. A live band, usually local musicians hoping to be discovered, sets up on the stage and plays covers of current hits and standards that everyone knows. The dances are more formal than fraternity parties, requiring dresses for women and jackets for men. The effort shows in posture and behaviour. People dance differently when dressed nicely, more carefully, more aware of how they appear to others. The atmosphere feels like playing adult, practicing for the formal events that will fill future lives. You ask Sarah to dance during a slow song, leading her onto the floor with one hand on her waist, the other holding her hand. The proximity is intoxicating and terrifying, appropriate yet intimate, every point of contact intensely aware. You move together in approximate rhythm, neither of you skilled dancers but both trying, focusing more on each other than on technique. The band plays a mix: rock and roll that gets everyone moving, slow ballads that thin the floor to couples only, folk songs that inspire sing-alongs. During fast songs, groups form circles, dancing with collective energy. During slow songs, couples claim space and move together, creating islands of closeness in the crowded room. Between songs, you step outside for air. The night is cold, shocking after the gymnasium's heat, but welcome. Other couples dot the lawn, talking quietly, stealing kisses away from chaperones' eyes. The music filters through gymnasium walls, muffled but present, the bassline thumping like a shared heartbeat. Not everyone participates in weekend social life. Some students, overwhelmed by crowds or uninterested in parties, spend Friday and Saturday nights in dormitories or libraries. They study, read, write letters home, create their own entertainment. They are judged by some for missing out, envied by others for avoiding the exhausting performance that weekend socializing requires. You return to the gymnasium for the last few songs. The band plays a final slow dance, a traditional ending that pairs up every couple on campus and leaves the unattached standing awkwardly against walls. You hold Sarah close, aware that this song marks the end, that soon you will walk her back to her dormitory and say goodnight on the steps and return to your own room where Monday's homework waits. The walk back is quiet, tired, satisfied. Weekend nights exhaust you in ways classes do not, the social, performance-draining energy you did not know you possessed. But they also provide relief, proof that college is not only academics and rules, that there is space for joy, for connection, for being young in ways that will not be possible much longer. You say goodnight to Sarah, kiss her briefly under the porch light, and watch her disappear into the dorm. Then you walk slowly back to your own building, ready for sleep, already looking forward to next weekend when the patterns will repeat, when the gymnasium will transform again, when everyone will dress up and dance and pretend for a few hours that life is simpler than it actually is. Exam season descends like a fog. The library stays open late, packed with students hunched over textbooks, chain smoking and drinking coffee until their hands shake. Blue books pile up on desks, typewriters clatter through the night. Sleep becomes optional. The shift begins 2 weeks before exams when professors announce review sessions and distribute study guides. The syllabi, ignored since September, are suddenly consulted religiously. Students compare notes, realizing with horror that major assignments mentioned in passing are now due, that readings they skipped might be tested, that grades hanging in precarious balance might tip either direction based on one 90-minute exam. The library transforms into a refugee camp for the academically desperate. Every seat fills by mid-afternoon and stays filled until closing. Students stake claims to tables, spreading textbooks and notebooks across surfaces, building fortresses of paper and highlighting pens. The usual quiet intensifies into something oppressive, broken only by the scratch of pens, rustle of pages, and occasional desperate sighs. You arrive at 6 p.m. with 3 textbooks, 2 notebooks, and a thermos of coffee strong enough to strip paint. Finding a seat requires patience and strategy, circling the reading room until someone leaves, then swooping in before competitors notice. You claim your territory and begin the grim work of reviewing an entire semester's material in one concentrated push. The coffee is essential. The cafeteria stuff, terrible on normal days, becomes precious fuel during exam week. You drink cup after cup, feeling jitters build, hands trembling slightly as you highlight passages and scribble notes. Around you, other students do the same, creating a collective caffeine dependency that vibrates through the library like a shared nervous system. Cigarettes punctuate study sessions. You cannot smoke in the library. so breaks happen outside on the steps where clusters of students huddle against the cold, smoking rapidly, discussing exam fears. Did you understand the third chapter? Is Professor Williams including material from lectures or just the textbook? How many essays will we have to write? The questions are desperate, seeking reassurance that no one can honestly provide. Study groups form spontaneously, students with complementary strengths trading knowledge. You understand chemistry. Mike understands history. Sarah understands English literature. Together, you quiz each other, fill gaps in understanding, construct shared knowledge that might carry all of you through exams. The nights grow longer as exam week approaches. The library officially closes at midnight, but students beg for extensions, and Mrs. Henderson occasionally relents, allowing study sessions until 2 a.m. Those who cannot stay migrate to dormitories where they continue studying in rooms lit only by desk lamps, trying not to wake roommates who have already finished their exams or given up entirely. You pull your first all-nighter 3 days before your chemistry exam, not by choice. The material simply requires more time than you allocated, and panic overrides exhaustion. You drink coffee until your stomach rebels. You chain smoke until your throat burns. You review mechanisms and equations until numbers blur together and you can no longer remember which formulas apply to which problems. Around 3 a.m, delirium sets in. Everything becomes funny. Mike, also awake, makes jokes that are not actually funny, but send both of you into hysterical laughter. You quiz each other in silly voices, creating mnemonic devices that will make no sense tomorrow, but right now feel like genius. By 5 a.m, you crash. Not sleep exactly, but a semi-conscious state where you rest your head on your desk and drift for 30 minutes before jerking awake in panic, certain you missed something crucial. You review notes again with gritty eyes, words swimming on the page. Blue books become currency during exam week. Students hoard them, carrying extras, trading them like contraband. Running out of blue books during an exam is disaster, requiring emergency requests from professors and lost time while more are retrieved. You buy a dozen from the bookstore and guard them carefully, stacking them on your desk like precious resources. Exam day brings its own terror. You arrive at the lecture hall early, joining students who pace outside, making last-minute reviews, quizzing each other on material they should have learned months ago. Everyone looks terrible. Unwashed hair, wrinkled clothes, faces grey with exhaustion and stress. The professor arrives, unlocks the door, and everyone files in silently. You find a seat, arrange your blue books and pens, and wait. The professor writes essay questions on the blackboard. You read them, stomach-dropping, realizing the questions target exactly the material you studied least. Then the exam begins, and everything else disappears. For 90 minutes, only the questions exist. Your hand moves frantically, filling pages, arguing points, demonstrating knowledge, desperately trying to earn enough points to pass. Around. You, other students do the same, everyone writing with the intensity of people whose futures depend on these blue books. The time passes both quickly and slowly, minutes dragging while you struggle with difficult questions, then suddenly racing as you realize you have 10 minutes left and 2 essays still to write. You scribble faster, sacrificing neatness for coverage, hoping the professor will credit effort even if clarity suffers. The professor calls time. You write one final sentence, mid-thought, and stop. Your hand aches, your back aches, your brain feels wrung out like a sponge squeezed dry. You hand in your stack of blue books and stumble out of the lecture hall into afternoon sunlight that feels aggressively bright after hours in the windowless exam room. Other exams follow the same pattern: preparation, panic, performance, exhaustion. By finals week, you're running on fumes, sustained by coffee and desperation. You stop showering regularly. You wear the same clothes multiple days. You forget to eat meals, subsisting on vending machine crackers and dining hall coffee. The semester's final exam is history, your last obstacle before freedom. You enter the exam room hollow, having given everything to previous exams, uncertain whether anything remains for this one. But somehow, muscle memory takes over. Your hand writes. Your brain produces answers. You fill blue books with essays about the Civil War and Reconstruction, hoping they make sense but too exhausted to judge. When you hand in the final exam, relief floods through you so intensely you nearly cry. It is over. The semester survived. Whatever grades emerge, at least the ordeal is complete. You walk back to your dormitory in a daze, barely processing the world around you. Your room looks like a disaster zone. Textbooks everywhere, coffee cups multiplying like organisms, laundry piled in corners. You ignore it all and collapse onto your bed fully clothed, asleep before you finish processing the thought that sleep is now permitted. You wake 12 hours later, disoriented, unsure what day it is. Mike is still asleep in his bed, equally destroyed by exam week. The dormitory is quiet, other students also recovering from collective trauma. Eventually grades will be posted. You will learn whether your efforts were sufficient, whether you passed or failed, whether next semester is possible. But right now, in the aftermath, grades feel abstract and distant. What matters is survival. You survived. The semester ended without destroying you, and for now, that is enough. Spring break is not a tropical vacation. It is a week at home, back in your childhood bedroom, catching up with high school friends who now feel like strangers, because college has changed you in ways you cannot quite explain yet. The bus ride home takes 6 hours, every seat filled with students desperate to escape campus for a few days. You stare out the window, watching landscapes scroll past, farmland and small towns and highway rest stops, feeling the peculiar sensation of travelling backward through time. With each mile, college recedes and home approaches, two worlds that exist separately in your mind suddenly forced to collide. Your parents pick you up at the bus station, and the greeting is warm but slightly awkward, as if you are all remembering how to be a family after months apart. Your mother hugs you tightly, commenting that you look thin. Your father shakes your hand, asks about grades with a casual tone that means he cares deeply about the answer. The car smells exactly as you remember, familiar and oddly comforting. Home looks smaller than you remember. The house that once felt spacious now seems cramped. Your bedroom, unchanged since September, feels like a museum exhibit of your former self. Posters on the walls reflect interests you have already outgrown. Trophies on shelves celebrate achievements that feel distant and vaguely embarrassing. The bed is too soft after months on a dorm mattress. Everything is exactly as you left it, which somehow makes it feel completely foreign. Your first night home, you sleep poorly, kept awake by the silence. College taught you to sleep through noise, roommates snoring, hallway conversations, doors slamming at 2 a.m, but suburban quiet feels oppressive, making you hyper-aware of every small sound. The house settles, the refrigerator hums. You lie awake listening to the absence of life you've grown accustomed to. Your parents treat you like a guest, asking permission to enter your room, offering to make your favourite meals, inquiring about your schedule before planning activities. The deference is strange. You left as their child. You returned as something in between child and adult, and no one knows quite how to navigate the ambiguity. High school friends reach out, suggesting you meet at the diner where you used to hang out on Friday nights. You agree, curious and nervous. The reunion is stilted from the beginning. They ask about college, and you try to explain, but your experiences sound either boring or pretentious when spoken aloud. They share updates about community college, jobs, engagements, lives that continued in familiar patterns while yours diverged dramatically. The conversation reveals gaps that did not exist 6 months ago. They reference shared memories you have already half forgotten. They gossip about people you barely remember. They use inside jokes that no longer feel inside because you are now outside, separated by experiences that cannot be easily translated. You try to bridge the gap by asking questions, showing interest, pretending nothing has changed. But everything has changed. You read books they have never heard of. You debate ideas they have never considered. You worry about the draft and civil rights, and whether your chemistry grade will tank your GPA, while they worry about shift schedules and car payments and local drama that feels impossibly small from your new perspective. The judgment flows both directions. They think you have become snobbish, intellectual, too big for the town that raised you. You think they have become provincial, narrow, stuck in place while you moved forward. Neither assessment is fair, but both feel true in the moment, creating distance that widens with each awkward pause in conversation. By midweek, you stop making plans with high school friends. The effort of pretending is exhausting. Instead, you spend time with your family, helping your mother with errands, working odd jobs with your father, sitting through family dinners that follow scripts established over decades. Your parents ask about college life, and you edit heavily, omitting the protests and the parties and the all-nighters, offering instead sanitized versions focused on academics and wholesome activities. They seem satisfied with the edited version, or perhaps they know you are editing and choose not to push. The generation gap is real and negotiated through carefully maintained fiction. You write letters to Sarah, long descriptions of home and family, and the strange experience of returning to a place that no longer quite fits. She writes back about her own spring break in Pennsylvania, describing similar feelings of displacement. The letters are lifelines, proof that your college life is real, that you have not imagined the person you have become. The week drags, days are long and unstructured. You read textbooks you brought home trying to stay ahead, but motivation is difficult without deadlines looming. Mostly you watch television with your parents, shows you would never choose but accept as the price of family harmony. By the final day, you are ready to return. Home is lovely and suffocating in equal measure. You pack your bag with relief, adding clean laundry your mother folded, cookies she baked for you to share with dormitory friends, small tokens of love expressed through domestic labour. The bus ride back feels like exhaling. With each mile, you relax, shedding the version of yourself that exists at home, preparing to re-enter the version that exists at college. By the time campus appears on the horizon, you're smiling, genuinely happy to return to the place that has become more home than home itself. Many students work their way through college. You wash dishes in the cafeteria, shelve books in the library, or grade papers for professors. The pay is minimal, barely enough for textbooks and occasional pizza, but it is yours. The job board in the student union lists opportunities updated weekly, index cards pinned to cork with brief descriptions and contact information, dishwasher needed dining hall evenings, library assistant 10 hours weekly, grader wanted for introduction to psychology. You scan the listings every Monday, looking for anything that fits your class schedule and does not require skills you lack. You land a position shelving books in the library, 15 hours per week at $1.25 per hour. The pay is barely enough to matter, roughly $19 weekly before taxes, but $19 is the difference between eating only dining hall food and occasionally buying a sandwich in town. It is textbooks purchased, used instead of borrowed. It is independence, however modest. Mrs. Henderson trains you personally, walking you through the Dewey Decimal System with the patience of someone who has explained it hundreds of times. Books must be shelved precisely, she explains. Order is sacred. A misplaced book is a lost book hidden from everyone who needs it. You nod seriously, understanding that this job is less about moving books and more about maintaining the library's soul. The work is physical and meditative. You push a cart loaded with returned books through the stacks, finding each volume's proper location, sliding it into place, moving to the next. The rhythm is soothing. Your mind wanders while your hands work automatically. You think about upcoming exams, about Sarah, about the draft, about everything and nothing while books find their homes. The library's basement holds older volumes, archives, materials accessed rarely. Shelving down there means solitude and dust in the particular silence of spaces underground. You discover books no one has checked out in decades, volumes on obsolete topics, first editions of novels now forgotten. Sometimes you pause to read a page, stealing moments of curiosity between assigned tasks. Other students work alongside you in different capacities. Jenny staffs the circulation desk, checking books out and in, collecting overdue fines with apologetic efficiency. Tom repairs damaged volumes in the conservation room, gluing spines and reinforcing bindings with careful precision. You form a loose community, library workers who understand the building's rhythms and rules, who take pride in maintaining this cathedral of knowledge. The cafeteria job pays slightly better, but demands more. Students who wash dishes work dinner shifts, arriving at 5 and staying until 9 or later, depending on how many people ate and how messy they were. The kitchen is hot, loud, industrial. You stand at deep sinks wearing rubber gloves and an apron, scrubbing trays and plates and silverware while steam rises around you. Mike works cafeteria, and his descriptions make your library job sound luxurious by comparison. He comes back to the dorm room every night exhausted and smelling like grease and dish soap, hands pruned from hours in hot water, but he earns $1.50 per hour, significantly more than you, and that difference matters when textbooks cost $20 each. Grading papers is the most prestigious student job, reserved for upperclassmen and exceptional sophomores. Graders work directly for professors, reading essays and exams, providing feedback, assigning preliminary scores that professors review and adjust. The pay is decent, $2 per hour, and the work happens on your own schedule, making it ideal for students who struggle with fixed shifts. But grading requires academic standing. You must have earned an A in the course you are grading for, and professors must trust your judgment. First years rarely grade. Most students wait until junior year before gaining enough credibility to be hired. Some students work off campus, waitressing at diners, stocking shelves at grocery stores, pumping gas at service stations. These jobs pay better, but require transportation and take you away from campus life. You miss study groups and social events and the spontaneous conversations that happen in dormitories after dinner. The trade-off is not always worth the extra money. Work study is federal money, allocated to students with financial need. If you qualify, the university helps find you campus employment and subsidizes your wages. The program makes college possible for students whose families cannot afford full tuition. Without it, many would not be here at all. You see the class divide in who works and who does not. Wealthy students never appear on library carts or in cafeteria kitchens. They spend their free time studying, socializing, pursuing extracurriculars without worrying about rent money. Their textbooks are new, purchased without hesitation. Their clothes are nicer, their spring breaks more exotic, their futures more assured. But working students develop skills wealthy students miss. You learn time management by necessity, balancing 15 credit hours with 15 work hours and still finding time to study. You learn the value of money earned through your own effort. You learn humility, gratitude, the dignity of labour that others might consider beneath them. Your Friday night shifts in the library mean missing parties sometimes. Your weekend morning shelving books mean sleeping less. But you also gain quiet pride in paying your own way, even partially. The money is yours, earned, not given, and that matters more than you expected when you took the job. By semester's end, you have earned roughly $300, most of which went to textbooks and incidentals. It is not much, but it is yours. And in 1963, for a college student learning independence $1.25 at a time, that makes all the difference. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blankets, let yourself drift back through what we have just walked through together. College life in the 1960s, cobblestone paths worn smooth by decades of footsteps, typewriters clattering through the night, blue books filled with handwritten arguments, curfews enforced by dorm mothers who knew every face, football weekends that unified the campus, protests that tried to change the world, the constant hum of becoming, of figuring out who you were beneath who everyone expected you to be. These students lived through rules that now seem impossible. They navigated expectations that feel alien. But beneath all the regulations and the rigidity, they were doing what every generation does: learning, growing, falling in love, making mistakes, building friendships that would last lifetimes, becoming themselves one late-night conversation at a time. They did not think of themselves as living through history. They were just students, worried about exams and dates, and whether they would find jobs after graduation. They woke up in cramped dorm rooms. They walked to class in the cold. They studied in libraries that smelled like old paper. They said goodnight on dorm steps because that was the only place goodnight could be said. And somehow, within all those constraints, they built lives that mattered. So maybe tonight, you carry something small from their world into yours. Maybe you slow down just a little. Maybe you notice a moment you would normally rush past. Maybe you appreciate the quiet dignity of ordinary days, because ordinary days are where life actually happens, where connection forms, where we become who we are meant to be. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just a library at midnight, and coffee that tastes terrible, and a friend who understands without you having to explain. Sometimes it is walking across a campus in autumn, watching leaves fall, knowing these years will not last forever, and choosing to be grateful anyway. Good night, rest well, and may your own ordinary days be full of the same quiet grace.